Hello guys, and welcome to part 4, the final part in a series of videos that I'm putting out this week where I break down all the fights taking place at UFC 235 from a betting perspective. So first of all, I want to kick off the video by saying a big thank you to everyone that's subscribed to my channel so far, and thank you also if you've liked any of the videos that I've put out this week. I did say that if all the videos that I put out this week reached a target of 50 likes, that I would do a bonus live stream Q&A video in the run up to UFC 235, where I'd also be looking for decent value prop bets on every card. And the first 3 parts of this video did hit 50 likes, so as soon as this video is saved and uploaded to YouTube, I will be getting that live stream going. And if you don't know what a prop bet is, let me just show you. A prop bet is just a highly specific bet. So for example, if you wanted to bet on, Robbie Lawler to win by knockout or TKO at 4.50, that would be considered a prop bet. So in the live stream video coming up in the next few hours, I will be going through every fight taking place tonight. The card starts in around 3.5 hours to try and find some decent value props. Now, what I also want to say is in the last last 12 hours or so during this fight day, I've had a load of comments on the YouTube videos, and throughout the week I like to read all the comments and respond to everyone, but fight days get absolutely mental. I've usually got a couple fights worth of research to wrap up. It's also the weekend, so I've got the little man home from school that I'm taking care of. We've got errands to run on the weekend, and also I stay in bed really, really late. So I live in the UK. Obviously, the time zone is not great for UFC events. The main card doesn't start until about 3 a.m. in the UK. So what I tend to do is I stay in bed on Saturday really late to like 3 or 4 p.m. so that I can stay up, be awake and fresh to live bet the fights when they're on very, very late in the UK, so that my brain's still working fine, I'm still sharp. Obviously, when you're live betting, you need to be really sharp and make good decisions, otherwise you can make some expensive mistakes. So that is the reason why I haven't really responded to many comments there, and it's unfortunate because obviously fight day is the day where everyone starts to rally around the event, everyone starts to have questions, everyone starts to do their final bits of research and final, bets that they want to place. So that's when I do tend to get the most amount of questions. So what I would say, guys, is I can see there's been loads of comments flying in on the videos, haven't had a chance to answer them, but in future, if you do want to get a direct response from me, the easiest way to talk to me about fights and get in touch with me surrounding fights and ask me questions is through the chat room on my website. So it's free to access. All you've got to do is go to the homepage here, which is MMABettingTips.com. Literally scroll down to where it says chat room, click that, and you are basically in. If you want to actually take part in the conversations here, you can see you've got about 8 people online at the moment. Literally click that. You'll click that, take you to a page where you'll register for a free account, and you'll be able to participate in the chat room. I'm online about 7 to 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, where I chat to my members in there. Obviously, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, emails, website, it's a lot to manage. So with me just starting this YouTube channel up in the last couple of weeks, haven't really got that much time to allocate, responding to comments in this. So if you do want to get in touch with me and I haven't replied to your comment on YouTube, the fastest way to do it is through my chat room. Like I say, throughout the week it's not too much of an issue because I've got time during the day to jump into the videos and answer the comments, but on fight days my priority's got to be the website. So I'm in the website talking to members in there, and I don't have too much time to respond to like emails, tweets, DMs, YouTube comments, all that kind of stuff, just because fight days are crazy for me. So in the future, if you want to get hold of me on fight day, my website is the best place to do it, and specifically the chat room, because even if you send me an email or a DM, sometimes I can be really slow to respond on fight day. But anyway, enough of that. We now want to get into the first fight that I want to be talking about today, which is Zabit Magomedsharipov versus Jeremy Stephens. So straight off the bat, this is a tricky fight to call because both guys have got big weaknesses in areas where their opponent excels. So what I mean by that is, in Zabit's last couple of fights, if we take a look at his record here, against Brandon Davis and against Karl Bochniak, there were signs that Zabit doesn't react very well to pressure. If you go back and watch those two fights, you'll see that at the times where Davis and Bochniak were walking him down, they were able to trap him against the cage, and in certain flashes, he looked quite nervous. Didn't really seem to be able to get his back off the cage through footwork, and really didn't have the respect with his strikes, the power in his hands to back them up. Now, you have to give him some allowances for that in the Karl Bochniak fight, because it came out afterwards that he did go into that fight with a broken hand because he didn't want to pull out. But at the same time, the slight weakness that I saw with him being nervous when opponents pressured him was also present in his last fight against Brandon Davis early in the first round. So go back and check those out. And that's obviously significant because Jeremy Stephens is a high pressure fighter. He likes to walk his opponents down, and obviously he's got much more power in his hands than Bochniak and Davis. And another thing that I noticed is when Zabit first came into the UFC, there was a load of hype behind him. You know, he's a flashy striker, very dangerous, looked excellent. But now that the mystique has kind of died down a little bit, and the hype has kind of died down a little bit, I noticed that when Bochniak and Davis were walking him down, they really didn't respect his power that much at all. They just walked through his shots and put a lot of pressure on him, which is perhaps a sign that Zabit isn't as devastating standing as we initially thought he would be, and potentially a sign that a guy like Jeremy Stephens could cause him a problem. The only problem with Stephens is that his takedown defense isn't great, and the ground game is one area where Zabit really doesn't have any weaknesses. He is absolutely excellent on the ground, very high level. What I would say about Zabit is he doesn't really possess traditional offensive wrestling, doesn't have the best takedowns, but he is very tricky with his trips and throws, and he will almost at times go into like a passive defensive shell to lure you into getting comfortable and lure you into getting aggressive, so that then he can catch you with one of these unorthodox trips or throws. And that is what makes this fight so tricky for betting, because if the fight stays standing, I think Stephens has got a pretty good chance of winning. But at the same time, when you look at how easily Renato Moicano was able to take Stephens down, you know, Edgar had a lot of success with his takedowns as well. And when you look at how badly Stephens struggled against Charles Oliveira on the ground, admittedly it was 5 years ago now, it just makes this a tricky fight. So if we look at the odds, if we bring the odds up here, I don't have them up, I thought I did. Let's bring the odds up here. We can see that currently Zabit is around about, call it an average of say 1.40, giving him an implied probability of 71%, while Jeremy Stephens is currently around about, call it an average of 3.15, giving him an implied probability of 30%. Now, these sort of bets, similar to this in many ways is similar to the fight between Ben Askren and Robbie Lawler, because there probably is a little bit of value on Jeremy Stephens, to be honest with you, because, you know, with an implied probability of 32%, that's kind of crazy when you take into consideration the fact that this is a huge step up in competition for Magomed Sharapov. This is a huge this is a hugely difficult stylistic matchup when you can take into consideration the fact that Bochniak and Davis were able to walk Zabit down, and Zabit didn't look at all comfortable. But the problem is, based on past performances, we know that Zabit should be able to get this fight to the ground. And when he does get this fight to the ground, we know that he should be able to have his way with Stephens and dominate him. Now, Stephens does hit extremely hard. He's very dangerous standing. But, you know, Zabit's probably got that trademark Dagestani chin. It probably isn't going to be that easy for Stephens to put him away. And even if Zabit got hurt with a big shot, you know, unless you absolutely put him out, he might be able to get super aggressive with the takedown, you know, get Stephens to the ground and recover. So this is one of those fights where, even though there's probably mathematical value on Stephens, it's not really the kind of bet that I like, because Zabit does have the skills to dictate where this fight takes place, and he should be able to take Stephens down and dominate him on the ground. So it's a tough one. I definitely wouldn't be betting Zabit at these odds, because like I say, there were flashes in the Bochniak and Davis fight that he struggles with pressure and aggression, but at the same time, I don't love a bet on Stephens either, because if he gets ragdolled for three rounds, which is absolutely possible, then your money's dead in the water. So when I bet on a fighter, I like them to have, a real clear and obvious advantage over their opponent and a real clear and obvious path to victory. And I just think that Zabit, based on Stevens' past performances, can take him down and do work. So that is it, guys. I would pass on that fight. I don't think Stevens is a terrible bet at all. But the same reason this week why I have recommended passing on like Cyphers and Robbie Lawler, I would just recommend not putting your money in harm's way with Stevens. There are much safer bets on this card, much better bets on this card, and I just don't think the risk is worth the reward. So the next fight that I want to go into is Cody Stamann against Alejandro Perez. And this is another striker versus grappler matchup. In many ways similar to Zabit and Stevens, except obviously Stamann's obviously nowhere near as dangerous a grappler as Zabit, and Perez is nowhere near as dangerous a striker as Jeremy Stevens. But again, both these guys do have weaknesses that their opponent can exploit. So Alejandro Perez doesn't have the best takedown defense, but what I would say about Perez is that he's pretty difficult to hold down. He didn't used to be, but over the last couple of years, he's started to do a great job of popping back up to his feet when he's got taken down. Now, Cody absolutely does have the wrestling to take Perez down, but the problem I have with Cody Stamann is that he's not one of these relentless grapplers like Ben Askren that will relentlessly shoot in on his opponents throughout the duration of the fight and grind on them. That is one of the things that I love about Ben Askren for all his weaknesses. The problem with a grappler like Cody Stamann is that he'll only really shoot for 1 or 2 takedowns per round, and if his opponent stuffs them or pops back to his feet quickly, his striking really isn't that ineffective, and you'll see him backing up a lot of the time and getting outstruck, just trying to defend himself. Now, the reason why Stamann fights with that system and that style is because he's trying to pace himself. He can't afford to go out like a Ben Askren or a Kamaru Usman or a Colby Covington and relentlessly shoot on his opponent for 3 rounds and grind on him, because he doesn't have the cardio. So Cody needs to manage his output, and for that reason, he only goes for 1 or 2 takedowns per round. Now, that's significant, because Alejandro Perez is difficult to hold down, and he does do a great job of popping back up to his feet quickly. Now, this fight is tricky from a betting point of view, because it's really all going to come down to how much top control Stamann's going to be able to get with his grappling, and when that's going to happen in the round. If Stamann decides to shoot his first takedown early on in a round, but Perez works his way back to his feet with 2 minutes left to go in the round and then outstrikes him for the remaining 2 minutes, that round's going to be very subjective how the judges score it, and it's going to get really complicated. So it really depends on, who finishes the round strongest and how much success Perez has at keeping this fight standing. Like I say, he's difficult to hold down, but Stamann is also a strong grappler. So if we look at the odds on this fight, currently Stamann is around about an average of about 1.54, giving him an implied probability of almost exactly 65%, whereas Alejandro Perez currently call it an average of around about 2.60, giving him an implied probability of 38%. So this, again, it is a tricky fight. I think the bookies have got this one spot on, guys, because if we look at Stamann's odds, he's around about has an implied probability of around about 65%, which is steep, to be honest with you. It is steep because, like I say, Perez is difficult to hold down, and Stamann isn't that effective striking, and Stamann also doesn't have the cardio to relentlessly shoot on his opponent and grind on him for 15 minutes. But at the same time, if we look at the odds on Perez, around about 40%, there's not really any value there because Cody does have the skills to dictate where the fight takes place. Perez isn't particularly dangerous standing, so if the striking exchanges are relatively close, and then Cody can defend himself and protect himself for 3 or 4 minutes in the first 3 or 4 minutes of each round, and then keeps enough gas in the tank to shoot a late takedown with a minute left to go in each round and steal the round, then could see Cody winning a decision here, because like I say, he has the skills to do that, the skills to dictate where the fight takes place. It's not like Perez is particularly heavy-handed or particularly dangerous standing. Cody should be able to dictate where this fight takes place. So no value there for me on either of those guys. It could end up being a close fight, particularly because under the new scoring, the new ABC MMA judging criteria, where lay and pray tactics are supposed to be not scored, are supposed to be punished under the new scoring, and also where takedowns aren't supposed to be scored as highly unless a fighter actually threatens with submissions off them or does damage. That will punish guys like Cody Stamann, because Stamann doesn't really do that much with his grappling or top control, kind of just grinds on guys and holds onto them and tries to wet blanket them. So again, this fight could come down to subjective judging, what type of judges we've got, you know, if they will pander to Cody Stamann's attempts to steal rounds with takedowns where he really doesn't achieve a lot, really doesn't threaten with submissions or do that much damage, or if they'll favour Perez's striking. I really think this fight is going to come down to at what point in each round Cody really commits to takedowns. If he fights smart, protects himself, avoids eating any big shots, and leaves it till the last minute or two of each round to try and steal each round with a takedown, I think Cody's going to get the nod. But in a fight like this, I've just got no interest in betting it at all. I think the odds are pretty accurate. So then if we move on to the next fight, another tricky fight, but if you've got live betting, I believe this is an amazing fight for live betting, or could be an amazing fight for live betting. So I've got no interest in betting this fight pre-fight, because I think there could be a lot of money to be made on it live. I make the vast majority of my money in live betting, so this is one that I am rubbing my hands together for. But I will talk you through how I see this fight from a pre-fight betting perspective, and then you can basically decide if you want to pull the trigger. What I would say is that this is a great fight. This is a really tough fight to predict, just because I think it's going to be a high-level chess match between both guys. And because it's so complicated, I'm kind of trying to work out where I should start with this. So straight out the gate, if you go back and watch any of Woodley's recent fights, even the Darren Till fight that ended at the end of round 2, it's very clear to me that Woodley does not have the cardio to fight at a high pace for 25 minutes. That is very, very clear to me. Some indicators that tell me that is the fact that he always starts the fight slow. You know, if you go back and watch his fight against Darren Till, basically did nothing in round 1. Also started slow against Thompson and Maia. He plays the role of matador. He wants the other person to lead. And also, if you watch any of his recent fights, you'll also notice that by the end of the first round, Tyron Woodley is completely dripping in sweat, which is another sign that there may be some conditioning issues there. His body's losing a lot of fluids, which isn't a good thing. So Woodley, we've seen him slow down and gas out in the past. You know, hasn't done for a while, but that's mainly because the Till fight and the Lawler fight ended so quickly, and because the Thompson and Maia fights, Maia and Thompson allowed Woodley to pace himself. But we did see him slow down quite a bit against Kelvin Gastelum. He just managed to squeeze through with a split decision win. He also slowed down against Rory McDonald. So we know Woodley's cardio is questionable, and that's significant here, because skill for skill, if this was a one-round fight, Kamaru Usman would basically have no chance of winning. He's not going to be able to outstrike Woodley. He's not going to be able to take him down. It's not happening. It is definitely not happening. But if Usman can make Woodley work very hard early in the fight, which is something that no one else has really been able to do because they're so scared of his power right hand, then this fight is going to get interesting. Now, Usman has looked vulnerable in the past, standing in flashes against Emil Weber Meek, but at the same time his chin's looked excellent. He's very tough, and you know, he's never been knocked out or KO'd, you know, in 15 pro fights, which is impressive. His only loss was to Jose Caceres in his second ever fight by rear naked choke. But obviously Woodley's a different beast. He hits like a truck. Very, 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 very hard hitter. Now, this is a This is a complex fight, guys. This is a fight which is perfect for live betting because there are multiple different pathways that it can play out. And if you know what all the pathways are, you can identify them early and you can get your money in early on the fighter who is going to control the path of this fight is playing out along. This is a chess match with multiple routes to victory for both guys. And pretty early on in the first couple of rounds, you should be able to determine which way it is going to go. Now, obviously, it's possible Woodley could get an early knockout. I just said Usman looked a bit vulnerable, a bit fragile against Emil Weber Mech. And obviously, Usman's never fought anyone that hits as hard as Woodley. But I'm sorry I'm rambling here. There's just so much to say. I'm going to try and get to it now. I'm going to try and explain how I see this. So, Woodley doesn't have the cardio to fight at a high pace for 25 minutes. But Usman doesn't have the technique to out-wrestle Woodley or the striking to outstrike Woodley. He can't do it. But if Usman can make Woodley work very hard early, if he can grab a hold of Woodley, drive him into the cage and force Woodley to grind it out with him in a clinch, I see Woodley gassing out by the third round and I see Usman taking over and then winning. If you look at the weigh-ins from yesterday, I'm just going to hit play here, guys, but look at the size difference between Woodley and Usman. Usman, just a much bigger, stronger, more physically imposing fighter. Watch when they go to stare down here. Usman, just a much bigger guy. So when they square up here, you'll see it. You know, look, Usman, just a bigger all-round guy. Bigger upper body, bigger arms, bigger head. Everything. Just a bigger guy. So if Usman can get into this clinch position, start grinding on Woodley early, making Woodley work, this fight's going to get interesting because Usman undoubtedly has the cardio to fight at a high pace for 25 minutes. We've seen him do it multiple times in the past. Usman's cardio is not in question, Woodley's is. So the way I see this fight, guys, is you cannot predict how it's going to play out. If anyone tells you they know how this fight's going to go down, or if anyone recommends a bet on either of these guys pre-fight, it's just not smart because there are multiple different pathways this could go. Because Woodley definitely has the power in his hands to cause Usman big problems early. And because of that power, Usman might be too scared or too nervous to close the distance, tie Woodley up and make him work early because he knows in order to close the distance, he's going to have to put himself in extreme danger of catching one of those Woodley right hands. So will Usman be able to start strong? Will Usman even be able to tie Woodley up, or will Woodley's explosiveness and footwork make it too difficult? It's a complex fight. It's a really, really complex fight, and I love it. It's almost not even worth looking at the pre-fight odds, to be honest with you. You know, the current odds on Woodley around about 1.60, giving an implied probability of 63%, and the current implied probability on Usman, with his odds around about an average of 2.45, giving a 41% implied probability. So this is basically capped perfectly by the bookies at the moment. It's a 60-40 fight in favour of Woodley, and that makes sense because if you think about it, Woodley holds pocket aces at the moment. He's got the wrestling to keep the fight standing. He's got the explosiveness and footwork to make it difficult for Usman to tie him up, and he's also got the right hand to put him asleep. So he absolutely deserves to be a slight favourite, which he is with an implied probability of 60%. But at the same time, Usman does have around about a 40% chance of winning because if he can make Woodley work hard and survive those first couple of rounds, the third, fourth, and fifth round are going to get very interesting. Could start to see Usman take over. Now, what makes this fight extra complex is that whoever wins 3 out of the 5 rounds is going to win a decision, right? So the way I would look at this is a lot of guys start slow against Woodley because they're so afraid of the right hand. It takes them a while to get comfortable, and it takes them a while to settle into a rhythm and start to gain some confidence. Now, if Usman starts slow here and he lets that first round slip and Woodley wins round 1, Woodley's only got to win 2 of the next 4 rounds to win the fight. And if you don't force Woodley to use that much energy in round 1, he might have enough gas in the tank to easily win the second and third round, or the second and fourth round, or whatever. So what I'm trying to say is, this fight is complex because it's imperative Usman starts fast. He cannot give Woodley a round off. He has to start fast, drive him into the cage and make him work. And if he does that, Even if Usman has to go through hell in the first couple rounds, there's a chance that Woodley will be tired by the third round. Usman can pick up the third, fourth and fifth rounds and win the fight, but it's not going to be easy. So this is a complex fight, guys. I would definitely definitely avoid pre-fight betting it, because there are so many different ways it could play out. Woodley could flatline Usman inside a minute, or Usman could make Woodley work really hard, drag him into deep waters and take an ugly decision. There are loads of ways this fight could play out. So avoid this for pre-fight betting, guys. But that is it for today's video. Like I say, I am going to get this uploaded straight away, and as soon as it's uploaded, I'll be back with a live stream where I'll be answering all your questions about tonight's fights. The fights start in around, exactly 3 hours from now. So I'll be answering all your questions on tonight's fights, as well as finding decent value prop bets for every fight taking place tonight. Thanks a lot, guys. Hit the thumbs up if you like this video and subscribe, and fingers crossed you fucking crush it tonight. I hope you make a ton of money. Good night, guys. I love you. I'll be back soon.